Welcome all to another episode of The Scoop, your go to resource to cut through all the noise of the transfer market and get a little dose of truth of what's happening behind the scenes. Especially important now, considering how close we are to the end of the window. My name is Zach, and as always, I'm joined by Frederic, from whom we get our inside insights. Frederic, how's it going?
Going pretty good, man. Thanks. How about yourself?
I am excited. We are just a couple days from the end of the market. And obviously, at the time of recording this, no changes have been made, but I think we can all feel the anticipation brewing. You got some cool names coming in. Shagrova potentially, are this promise to Kolomwani, maybe some names going out, and escalated interest to Vlahovic. Is that going to amount to something? Well, our goal is to tell you a little bit about what's going on today. Also, we're going to get a little nerdy on you. We've taken a look at the financial impact of these potential deals to give you an insight into Kamoli's strategy and how these will affect our books. And maybe more importantly, or certainly as important, we're gonna also ask the important question of whether these moves would make us better. So that's on the docket for today. It's going to be a packed show. So without much further ado, Frederic, how about we get into the potential departures list? As always, name number one on the list, buzzing a lot today, is Dusan Vlahovic. What are the chances he leaves?
I'd put Dusan at room temperature for now. I can see either one or two things happening. Another team comes in with a bid that satisfies not only Juventus, but Dusan himself and his management, because this is the big obstacle at the point. At this point, his management is asking for a signing fee for themselves in around 12 to 15 million,
Jeez.
meaning that it's quite a hefty sum for a player that hasn't gained that much interest as much as he'd hoped. So if that's not gonna happen, then we'll be stuck with Vlahovic, so to speak. But there is a chance that we might renegotiate his contract for the coming years, in which he is seemingly prepared to lower his wages and spread his wages out across that term. So we'll see what happens there. Should he leave? Well, like I said, it has to be an offer um, that's good or attractive to three parties and not just to Dusan or Juve himself. Should he not, then I think we'll sit around the table and see what happens, because Juventus does not want to lose him on a free, despite what many people think. We try to avoid that as much as we can. So we'll see how this story will evolve in the coming days, and I'm pretty sure there'll be some drama involved.
Yeah, I mean, we heard a lot today, though, that he's warmed up to Milan. Milan, Allegri's been pushing for him. Is a lot of it come down to this sort of management fee that his sort of I don't know if it's his agents or whomever are asking for. Is that really the hang up, or is there more behind the scenes with regards to what we're hearing, where it
Well,
sounds like the parties Vlahovic might be actually warming up to the Milan move?
he already agreed personal terms with them, so
Okay.
I think he's pretty sure about that. The fact is, not only the management fee, but Milan are hell bent on bringing in another player to lower part of the financial weight of the deal,
Mhm.
and Juventus only want Salamakers. Allegri is not inclined to let him go. Juventus said, you either give us Salamakers and I think it was 14, something in between 14 and 16 million, and
Mhm.
then we can sit down. If not, it's not happening. So Juventus is very clear on that. You give us 25 to 30 as a lump sum, or you give us Salamakers and let's call it 15 even, and then it's a done deal. If not,
Gotcha.
so yeah.
Gotcha. Well, needless to say, there's going to be a lot of action on this front, whether he goes or stays, and it's our goal. I think we've got two more scoops scheduled between now and the end of the market, so it's our intention to keep you abreast of any updates there. Let's move on to Nico. Nico Gonzalez linked heavily with Atletico Madrid. Where do we stand on that?
It's a bit at a standstill at this point because Atletico Madrid have already initiated talks with Yannick Carrasco, an old familiar player of them. He's returning from somewhere in Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. But they still want, or at least the coach wants Nico desperately. But they're on a tight budget, same as Juve are. But Juve intend to get the most out of the deal. They're hell bent on an obligation, whereas Atletico at this point are still considering if an obligation is the good thing to do, or a straight out transfer fee. Now,
Hmm.
Juventus have suggested if they can get their finances in order, they'd be ready to settle down for a slightly lower sum. If not, then Juventus stand by their 30 million in total for a loan with an obligation.
Gotcha.
They're still working on the terms of the obligation.
Hmm.
So I'd put him at warm because Nico himself wants to move, knows that he's not going to get a lot of playing time or not in the position that he prefers. So I think it's best for both parties if we get this settled before next Monday.
The next player on our list has 1 year left on his contract, and we have spoken about him rarely, which is surprising considering uh, most players with 1 year on their contract, a la Duchan, have been talked about a lot. Weston McKennie has been kind of flown under the radar after what seemingly are reportedly rejecting a contract renewal from Juventus short of his goal. Why is he on our list today?
Well, he's on our list because apparently in the past last days, some teams have approached Juventus and or Weston's management. Thus far, he declined every offer. I think it has to do with the teams themselves. I think Weston, his focus lies with signing with a top tier squad, not the
Hmm.
likes of Real Madrid or anything, but certainly not the Fiorentina level. But I honestly think that, in these last few days, a lot could happen. I'm going to put him down as cool for now. But, in these last few days, anything can happen. All it takes is one good offer from a team, and it can all be done in like a matter of hours. So.
Yep. Yep. Well, next player, young Italian defender Nicolo Savona, currently injured, but he's popping up again. But there's interest from the Premier League. Is that right?
Very right. As I said, our last episode of Turin Giants of the podcast, he received an offer from Nottingham Forest as well as Juve. Juve declined because they didn't think it was sufficient. Now the Nottingham Forest have
Well, now,
basically
wait. What do you mean by now?
now, as in like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Hold up. Then you know how we do it
I'm
here.
sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
you gotta give me a second because it's appropriate that we play the drop.
And now, Freddy Scoops with the scoop. He's the best in the business, see?
Alrighty. Now, as in, what were you gonna say, Frederic?
Thanks for that, by the way. Nottingham Forest have pushed up their bid for a total of 16 million, 12 and a half fixed, 3.5 in bonuses, and 10% on a future sell clause,
Hmm.
which Juventus for now have declined. Even though it's a tasty offer, they declined because Juventus are set on an 18 million fee at minimum, meaning that we're only 2 million apart from demand and offer. And I think, or that my sources tell me, that Komoli is gonna initiate talks in the coming hours with Nottingham Forest. So it might be that we see Nicola leaving for Nottingham Forest. I was gonna say the sheriff of Nottingham, but that's another podcast. Um, uh, so I mean, with 2 million euros difference, I think they'll find the middle ground somewhere. Given the fact that they've already agreed personal terms with Savona, helps this this negotiation.
Yeah, you
So
wouldn't expect that you I mean at that stage you would kind of, whether you like it or not, would expect this deal to go through, which is why we've labeled it red hot, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, it also to us, it's a good deal in the sense that I mean, wage wise, Savona didn't cost us that much, but if you look at the transfer fee, then it's all positives for us. So with that respect and the things on how our balance sheet is looking, I wouldn't expect Juve to blow up a deal for 2 million euros at this
Yeah,
point.
fair enough. Um, Facundo Gonzalez, a player who's never played for Juventus' senior team. In fact, during the scrimmage versus Next Gen, played for the Next Gen folks, but he is part of our senior roster. Um, i- is he going to see any playing time with Juventus this year? Is he gonna go to Next Gen? Is he going to leave entirely? Where do we stand on this young center back?
I think that Facundo will be loaned out because the offers that we have are not particularly appetizing to him nor to us. But he is a player with skill and with potential. So I think that if we don't put him in next gen and give him some minutes in the first team during Coppa Italia games or whatever, I think we're gonna go for a straight loan and see him back next summer. Also because of the fact that his wages are not that heavy a burden for us. So, but
Fair
I'm
enough.
thinking a straight out loan, yes.
Cool. Well, these are the main players who we've been hearing a lot about departures for Juventus. Let's switch the script here and talk about potential arrivals. And we're going to start first two names on the list being Colomwani first, Jagrova second, the two that have been the most talked about potential arrivals over the last week or so. Colomwani for the last months or so. Is it Randall Colomwani Day yet, Frederic?
It isn't yet, but if it's not gonna be like today because here in Belgium it's 10:30 already, I'm hoping, expecting it to be tomorrow because I think the deal is 99% done. As I said a couple of weeks ago in our scoop episode, Randall Colomani only wants Juventus. Juventus want him. PSG have opened up. We're looking at a fixed transfer fee at about, I'm thinking 55 million, 10 million
That's
loan.
after 10 million. Yeah, that's after a 10 million loan
Yeah,
fee this year.
10 million loan, and in between 45 and 50, I'm a bit cautious about this because you never know, especially
Mhm.
in Italy, what kind of bonus figures they apply and when those bonuses will be triggered. There's not a lot of transparency about that, but I'm thinking somewhere along this line, which isn't too bad if you look at prices for other strikers, even lesser known gods that you tend to purchase for like 40 or 50 million after they
Mhm.
scored like 7 goals last season. So I'm not gonna hate on the Colomwani transfer. And in my opinion, if it's not gonna happen today, it's gonna happen tomorrow.
Well, that one we've been pretty consistent for much of the last month and change. It's going to happen. It's a matter of when. Well, over the last several days, Jagrova has really been the tale of will they, won't they? Where from one minute to the next, it seems like it's guaranteed, to then it's not going to happen, to then he gets his passport, to then it's not going to happen. As we stand here right now, you say 10:30 on August 27th. What's the chances that Jagrov is a Juventus player?
At this point, I'd say 60% that he will become a Juventus player. And I'll repeat the things I said in a previous podcast. It's heavily linked with the departure of Nico Gonzalez.
Hmm.
Comoli's very firm on that. He doesn't want to make a loss. He wants to bring in players, but only if we need them for now. The good thing here is we've already agreed personal terms with Zegrova, meaning that from January he can sign whenever we want on a free.
Hmm.
If we don't get him now and we still see something in him and we keep the contact alive, then it could very well be our first signing in the next summer transfer window for free. Whereas now he would cost us about roughly 15 million.
And what I think he's 26 years old. So it's not like, waiting a year or 6 months materially affects his his value or his physicality, right? So I think if that is an option, he's fit and so forth. I think many folks, myself included, would be interested in that.
Yeah,
Um,
the good thing is, sorry to interrupt.
mhm.
I just wanted to say the good thing is that we've had daily contact with Lille and Zhigrova's management, meaning that something is cooking. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be in the coming days or for January, but they're very very much in touch with each other, all parties concerned. So that's why I'm putting him at 60%.
Well, the second we sold Douglas Louise, everyone was saying Matt O'Reilly, Matt O'Reilly, Matt O'Reilly. But I have not heard his name over the last several days. What is the deal? Are we going to bring in Matt O'Reilly to replace Douglas Louise, or maybe separately from Douglas Louise's departure to bolster our midfield?
It could very well happen, but I'm not optimistic. Why am I not optimistic? Because it's been a week since we've been in touch with Brighton. So I don't know if we departed that option already. Um, like I said before, we've agreed personal terms with O'Reilly, so that should speed up the whole process. But Tudor was very, very happy with Koopmeiners' his spell in the Parma game. And he's pretty amendment that he is the perfect coach to revive Koopmeiners, which doesn't take away from the fact that we're still one midfielder short. But as I said, this is something I'm not too informed about, especially because we haven't had any contacts with them for over a week. So I don't know where we're at that point, to be fairly honest with you.
Mm. And he's been playing for Brighton, by the way. So they don't seem terribly bothered by the rumors around him. They've been playing him, and he's scored a goal
Yeah.
already. Let's move on to Girona right back, Arnau Martinez. Um, a player I believe we've had on the show once before,
Yeah.
but for those not familiar, is Girona's right back. What would be the conditions that we bring in him, and what is the likelihood of that happening?
Well, the likelihood of that happening, I mean, it's hard to put in terms. I'd put him as warm.
Hmm.
Why? Because I know that he's the number one target to replace Savona. And seeing the fact that Savona could possibly leave us today or tomorrow or whenever, and we still have time to bring in Arnau Martinez, then we will bring him in. What's our biggest advantage at this point is that he has a relative low clause. I think it's about 10 million.
Hmm.
That is clauses set for foreign countries, not within Spain. For teams within Spain, it's set higher. But for foreign countries or leagues, it's set at 10 million, which isn't that much considering the prices we hear in these last few months that are through the roof. Player with a lot of potential. So I'm feeling pretty confident, but like I said, and this is what Scamoli's been preaching all day, or all summer. Somebody has to go in order for us to bring somebody in.
Yeah.
Like we're done with
Yeah.
having too many players that we have to pay tremendous wages over. We're gonna slim down, and either we replace somebody, and it has to be a better fit than the person we already had, or we won't even bother. So
Gotcha. And that makes sense. Shagrova tied to Nico. O'Reilly theoretically was tied to Douglas Luiz. Martinez tied to Savona. And let's go to the last name. The last name, we were for a hot minute in the Jaden Sancho sweepstakes, but he has not been linked to Juventus recently. Is this the end of Juventus's interest in Jaden Sancho?
I wouldn't say end because it all depends on the final few days.
Hmm.
And you know what I mean for Juventus at this point or previous months ago, Jadon Sancho was seen as a bit of an opportunity in terms of cost and potential. But given the fact that he still has some offers coming in and he is not too keen on lowering his salary, it's all gone a bit, it spiraled a bit. downwards. But if we, and I'm just thinking out loud here, if Jadon Sancho is left one day before the deadline without any club, and an offer of Juventus should come in, albeit with lower wages, I don't think he'd be a fool to accept them and try to revitalize himself in Serie A.
Mm.
But anything can happen. He's the typical last minute transfer on
Yeah.
deadline day, like something like that. For now, and at this point, at 10:35 in Belgium, I'd say I have more chance of finding Scarlett Johansson between my sheets within an hour than signing Jadon Sancho.
I'm
I don't
processing
know.
that right now. I'm processing that right now.
Yeah, yeah.
But
This was
but
a
I
little
think I
text
think
from my
we.
source, by the way.
But I think, needless to say, we put him as cool. It is definitely less likely to happen than more as of right now. Again, got further episodes scheduled to give you a little bit more information on that. And I
Yeah,
think for right now, we're gonna leave the comings and goings and kind of pivot in this episode to talk first money, and second, what our team would look like if the likely transfers, and that for the sake of today being Kolomwani and Jagrova in, Dusan, Nico out, happen. What is the effect on our books? What kind of job is Kamoli doing from a money standpoint? And do these moves collectively make us better? So we're going to take a look at a likely depth chart of our team and sort of discuss whether, with all of the moves that are happening, whether this actually makes us better than we are today and better than we were last year. So let's jump into the money talk a little bit. If you are watching, and again, with the scoop, always there is a video component to it. I'll try my best to talk you through it for those who cannot watch, but for those who can, who are on YouTube at TurinGiants Official or on Spotify Video, we've got some charts with us, lots of numbers. I'm not going to go into all the specific per player numbers. I'm going to talk high level for you just so that people's eyes and minds don't glaze over for number talk. But I think this is important to take a look at. It as a reflection, after all, of how Kamoli does his business, and certainly relative to how Juntali did his. All numbers you're about to see are a combination of transfer market, Capology, and numbers that we've received from Frederic and his sources. So take them with a small grain of salt, but I think we stand by the general consensus of it. So let's talk about where the money is today. 10:35 at PM in Belgium on August 27th, shortly before Frederic joined Scarlett Johansson between his sheets. Kamoli inherited over 100 million euros in loan and obligations this year. So we started off before looking at any changes in wages by selling people or signing people, or any changes in our net transfer spend, at a negative 100 million. When you look at what moves we have been able to make, the effect on our net transfer spend is still negative 48 million euros. When we look at the change in our wages, getting folks like Douglas Luiz and Artur and Thiago Giallo off our wages while adding David and Mario, we are fortunate to be in the positive. So we've lowered our wage bill €6.5 million, but that still puts us in a hole of negative 40 million euros from when we started the summer, or when the books shifted from June 30th to July 1st. That is not a good state to be in, and that's where we find ourselves in today. So let's look ahead. If those likely deals go through again, Jagrova, Kolomwani, Dusan, and Nico Gonzalez, what would the effect on our finances be? And you'll see right away that getting rid of Nico and Dusan while adding Kolomwani and Jagrova actually lowers our net transfer spend, meaning we're only losing 24 million euro there. But as predicted, offloading Dusan's wages means that our wages from where we are today would be 22 million euro less, bringing the net change in transfers and wages to about even, which is fascinating to me, because last year at this time, we were negative 87 million euro, mostly due to burying ourselves in a transfer hole with all the ones we brought in and our inability to sell. But to saying that our net transfer spend of negative 24 million is entirely compensated by savings on our wage bill shows me, at least, that Kamoli knows what he's doing from a financial perspective. What is your take on Kamoli's moves and the effect on our budget and on books, Frederic? Are you as impressed as I am?
I'm even more impressed, I'd say, especially since because dear fellow listeners, all credits due to Zach. He drew this up. He made the whole schematics of it. So kudos to you, Zach. But seeing it like this, it's even more overwhelming to me because our regular listeners know that I've had a bit of a soft spot for Kamoli since the day that he joins, the way that he works and his mentality and things like that. He's quite the opposite of Juntoli, who I hated with a passion. Um, so if you see this, then it's this is 2 months work. This man has done in 2 months more than we have done financially over the last 3 to 4 years, I'd say, without sacrificing quality.
Well, we're going to talk about quality in a second, but I think it
Yeah,
bears
okay.
repeat. I think it bears repeating that if these likely deals go through, and we're not even accounting for Champions League money. Okay, this
No,
is strictly the effect of transfers and wages on our books. Okay, we will have broken even this year. Well, negative 2 million euro. Okay, effectively broken even. When at this time last year, when you account for wages and transfer, the net transfer spend, we were roughly negative 100 million euro. I mean, the
yeah.
change is just, it's super stark to me.
And
I would
the
love to
best
see these
thing,
deals go through from a financial perspective. We'll talk sporting in just a
of
second.
course.
Just a second.
And I know we both knew, and a lot of Juve fans knew as well last summer what we were getting into with our spending habits.
Mhm.
But we were, I think most of us were fairly convinced of the fact that we were building a quality side, but that didn't turn out to happen. So now we need to, haul ass and get things sorted. But the most positive thing for me about this whole outline is the following: that we will have um, our budget increase, or what's the proper term for it? Capital increase in
Mhm.
September, October. It was already signed for by the CDA, the board of directors. It is yet to be determined what the number will be because some of our investors want to pitch in if
Hmm.
they can. So this could be something between the lines of 15 to 50, 60, 70 million, which is good because that goes into our piggy bank for next summer. We have the Champions League money that you mentioned, which is also a pretty nice bonus, and the fact that next summer a lot of players will see their contract expired, meaning that we will not only save on wages, which is a very good thing, but we'll also not be faced with having to find teams that are willing to loan or pay for the salary of the likes of Arthur or whatever. So that frees up a whole lot of money. And we could see a potential transfer budget for summer 25, summer of 26, 27. No, yeah, it's summer 26,
Yeah,
27.
summer
Sorry.
26. Yeah.
Summer 26, we could see a potential transfer budget about 150 million without players leaving. So if you get 2, 3 players out, you can expect like 30, 40 million to triple in.
I mean,
So
wasn't it about January of last year where there was a post that said for the last year Juventus had broken even, and a lot of that had to do with Champions League helping compensate for the
yeah,
net wage and transfer deficit that we were racking up. Well, and we were all celebrating. We broke even. Look at us. We finally are righting this financial ship. Well, if we went into that breaking even before even accounting for Champions League and awards and capital increases and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me that we would have a hefty amount of money to play with next year. to improve the squad. So that I'm really looking forward to that if these deals can go through. So from a financial perspective, we talked about it. I think, when you're looking at it over an overarching change of -2 million versus last year of roughly 100, -100, I think not too many people are going to split hairs that is a massive improvement. But that doesn't actually matter if we're not making ourselves better on the pitch to ensure better results than fourth place in the league, right? So let's take a look at what Juventus would look like with these deals done this year. If you're watching on the screen, I have sort of a little depth chart here. Obviously, several of our players can play multiple positions. For the sake of just discussing, I stuck, Shagrova in the 10 position when we could easily see him deployed as a right wing back. David in the striker position when we could see him play next to Yildiz and behind Kolomwani. So don't split hairs on me with that. But let's take a look, Frederic, at the team in front of us with these changes in mind. And you tell me, is this team better than it is today, first and foremost? Zagrova over Nico and so forth, and Kolomwani and over Dusan. And secondarily, is this team better than last year's team?
Well, it's both answers are heavily intertwined, I think. As for the first question, is this team better than what we currently have? I'd say yes, because if you look at Nico, for instance, he's underperformed. If you can put Jagrova in, who could play at multiple positions, I think quality-wise, you'll improve. That's just my personal feeling. Also with Kolomwani, I think you have a lot more capabilities up front. You could play with three strikers. You could play with one deep striker and two false number nines, whatever. I mean, you can pretty much adapt your whole attack onto the whole character that Colomwani has, or the ability that he has as an attacker. So I'd say yes. And the second question, are we better than last year? Tremendously, because last year, and I know you and I have been saying this over and over,
Mhm.
we lack depth. Let's not talk just quality, because we lack that too. Everybody knows that. But the first thing that we really needed was more depth, because if somebody got injured, we had to play players out of their position who hadn't played for a long time or hadn't played in that position ever, which means that the whole structure of the team basically goes down the toilet. Now we have more depth. We have players who know their positions, who know each other, who know where they can play. If you look at Turan, he knows his midfielders by heart. He knows what their strengths are. So that's already an improvement. And I think I'm not gonna say we're gonna do something internationally, because I think we lack a bit in the quality department there to do something serious, to do some serious damage in the Champions League. But if you look at this picture, and you look at the opponents in Serie A, then I stand by my point, which I made in the previous podcast, that we could go for the title. Yeah.
I think there's two components to depth. There is the game by game depth. Okay, in this particular game, I need someone to come off the bench and make a difference. And then there's the depth for a multiple competition season long campaign.
True.
I think our in game depth is better. For example, my issue is, and we saw this a little bit in the Club World Cup and towards the end of this last season, is if our starters are sucking wind or they're just having a bad day, who's going to come off the bench to have a positive impact? And for the vast majority of our team, the answer was absolutely nobody. If
Yeah.
you're looking at this and you say, okay, Kolomani's having an off day, we can bring in David. Conceição's having an off day, we can bring in Shagrova. Anybody in the midfield having a rough day, you could plug in McKennie. Defense, I think we have a lack of depth and quality, but for the most part, I think we can plug in impactful pieces with this team in a game-to-game scenario. But when I look at this depth chart, I am concerned in a season-long multiple competition campaign. Like you mentioned, I don't think we're going to go far in Europe. It's really hard, and we're going to probably see this over the next 2 games, to have a dominant multi-competition team with Kostic as your backup left wing back. I just don't think he's there anymore. Right? We have no depth in the right wing back position. It's sort of just plug somebody in there and hope. I mean, if Zagrova comes, we could deploy him there as well with Mario, and I think that would be effective. In defense, we saw it last year, and we really didn't fix the problem that we have no depth in center back. Okay, we have Bremer back, and that's awesome. And I think every deity that exists every day that he is back. But beyond Gatti and Kalulu, I mean, Rugani, Kelly, Cabal, I think they're all, average, right? I don't think they're game breakers. You might throw them in there to win some head balls at the end of the game. But that's my concern is sort of season long depth. And what you tell me is say, hey, this year we might not be great in Europe. We could compete for the Scudetto. Awesome. We get a chunk of cash next year, and that's where we finish building this squad. I can kind of buy into that, but I think for this year we do not have the season long depth that unfortunately some of our main competitors in Serie A do to sustain multiple competitions and from a threatening position.
No, and the thing also is that it wasn't like we weren't searching for a right wing back, left wing back, or center back, but quality and price wise, Kamoli was just not convinced. And I think if you look at this and you say, hey, we lack depth, and you feel kind of bad about it because, hey, we're Juventus, I have to agree. But to some extent, as we all saw what Giuntoli did last season. He said, well, I desperately need somebody there. Let's just pay whatever they want and whatever he wants as a salary, and we're good. I mean, it doesn't work that way. So Kamoli preferred to put all his chips on Bremer at this point as center back, and maybe if we can get Arnau Martinez in, we could have somebody on the left wing as well, who could potentially also play right, if I'm not mistaken. I think Arnau.
I think it's the other way around. I think right wing that can play left.
Right, yeah. But, it gives us a bit more flexibility, but it was impossible also because of the costs we had, the negatives that Giuntoli created to revamp the whole team. So we had to make choices, and at this point, without seeing what effects it has on the pitch, I'm firmly standing behind Kamoli's choices, or the ones that he made up until now. So given the fact that he's only 2 months in, let's give the guy time. Let's see what we can build upon now. Let's see if we can create that unity that we desperately need as a team, and take it from there, because, well, we have to build the foundations first. We're not going to start building a house by building the attic first. You have to start with the foundations, and at least that's, for me, something that's very important this season.
We joked last episode about, hey, come on, do something meme with Juventus this transfer window. And we kind of kicked off the show saying that no moves as of recording this have happened since then. And I think there's a discontent in a good subsection of the Juventus fandom that says we need to be doing more. And I think and that kind of puts a conflict. On one hand, you have sort of, we need to be making things happen, and we need to be proactive. And if we're not, we're failing. And on the flip side, you have the let's be measured. Let's take our time. Let's make sure it's the right fit. And I think you got two different ends of the spectrum. And I don't know if it's the Giuntoli experience that is haunting me still, but he sort of fit in on that, make deals, be flashy, bring people in. And that, bit us in the butt, right? I think some, is some of that's retroactive analysis. I acknowledge that, but I think it bit us in the butt. And so when we're now, taking a look at our finances, taking a look at our sporting goals, taking a look at the amount of money we'll have next year, I'm all in support of a measured approach, making sure it's the right fit, making sure it makes sense from a financial perspective, because like you said, that is the foundation upon which we can build sustained success and growth, knowing that we don't have the luxury of having owners who can, routinely breach, or and I guess presumably routinely breach FFP like some of the European giants do today, and we
I
certainly
mean,
can't spend like Liverpool did this summer. So I definitely maybe have swung in the advance of measured approach. I think this might be an area though where if y'all feel that there were more deals to be had, or you think Kamoli's dropping the ball a little bit. I think Frederic and I have kind of spoken in favor of him, both financially and from a sporting perspective. Let us know in the comments on YouTube. For those who do comment, I thumbs up and or reply to all of them. So please hit us up with some comments on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts. If this is your first time, and I'm kind of getting to the end here, Frederic, so I'm sorry. I'll let you speak to any more on this roster if you can. But while I'm riffing, I'll say for people who are new to the scoop, who like the scoop and haven't subscribed on YouTube, and I don't generally like to be talking about all the socials and stuff, but those types of numbers do mean a lot for our podcast. So if you can subscribe, if you like the show and haven't yet, please do so at TurinGiants official. Frederic, sorry, closing thoughts on our roster and Kamoli.
well, not the roster itself, but I heard from my source, and Comoli has a
Wait. Do I need to play the drop again?
no. It's not that important, but it's to give the people a bit of insight on how Comoli's working and the sheer determination that he puts up. Comoli, apart from the players that we're mentioning here in the podcast and which we know that we're dealing with, or however you want to put it, Comoli has made a short list of 114 players which he intends to explore alongside with management, not just for the summer transfer market, but eventually for the January transfer market. That means that he's vetted over 100, what is it, 120, 25 players, which he pretty much handpicked or moneyball picked or whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, that's a lot of work. And if you see that he's reduced our debts and worked very hard on bringing people in, the few people that he brought in, and selling people for more than Juntuli did in 2 months' time, I think, well, objectively, we just need to say you did a bang up job.
Can I ask you? I mean, I know we're this episode's gone a little bit longer because we touched on some new things here. Um, but I have to ask, at what point does a short list stop becoming a short list? Because I think once you get over 100, I think you can no longer call it a short
Yeah.
list.
No, it's not a short list per se. It's a list, but what Kamoli intends to do is reevaluate every bi-weekly, so 2 times a month, with managers involved and tutor himself or the coach who's at the helm at that point, and see, okay, what do we need? Where do you see the lack? And if tutor points out, well, this Yildiz guy, man, I'm not convinced. I don't know. Then you need to go on the look for another number 10.
Mhm.
Instead of doing that and spending time researching the possible number 10s, Komoli can pull out his shoulder and say, hey, number 10, you say, well, look at this pretty Excel I made for you. And then he can pull out all the alternatives he has found already and are within margins financially and sportingly of Juventus. Because it's not just, oh, I want somebody with brown hair and age between 20 and 30, and that'll do. No, I mean, every other aspect, everything that you need to take into consideration before approaching the team or the player has been dealt with already,
Hmm.
meaning that we shift fairly quickly if, of course, our management as a whole and eventually the coach decide that it's an okay move. And the astonishing thing about that, the players that I'm mentioning on the short list, there is no player worth more today in market value over 55 million euros, meaning that there are players on there who maybe cost 5 million euros. I don't know, who could be hidden gems. There will also be players worth 30 million, but if we bring them in, we'll get our return on investment.
And I think
Meaning that,
that's important to say because I've been thinking about it is I mean, we're seeing this summer. So many of our big signings have materially lost value. I mean, we got some young guys in. You know, Trump's gone up in value. Yildiz has skyrocketed in value, right? So this is not to say this is universal, but our big signings like Coop's not gone up in value. Douglas Luiz, we lost money on that deal. Nico hasn't gone up in value. Dusan hasn't gone up in value, and so getting players in who can improve. I think João Mario just in what one game
Yeah.
has gone up in value because what we paid, what 12, 13 million for him.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you know, that's the type of deal. Turan, what do we pay? Less than 20. He's
Yeah.
certainly worth more than 20 now. I'm all aboard that train. I think that would be great. And I look forward to seeing what happens at the end of this transfer market. And as I've said twice now, we will keep you abreast of that with further content and as well as in the future. I think this is a good time to say, hey, y'all, if you have questions for us, if you want to ask about a certain player, what's going on, you can reply in the comments to the YouTube. As I've said before, you can also reach out to us directly at Zach Talks Calcio or at the Scoop Juve on Instagram, as well as messaging our parent Instagram at TurinGiants. Frederic, I appreciate you. And listeners, it's for y'all that we do this. So we are ever appreciative for y'all, your feedback, your engagement, and your reviews. So thank you. And until next time, which should be coming very shortly, thank you all. And as always, Forza Juve.